Welcome tonight, everyone. Going to allow you to begin to get on here with me tonight. I want to talk about some things that are in my heart, some things that I've been praying and seeking God about for a while now, and want to address those things tonight from my heart and share from my heart how I feel God has instructed me to discuss and talk about some of the things that are happening in our nation and around our communities and our churches. It is with great sadness that we are witnessing some of the things that we're witnessing today across this nation. My heart is heavy. My heart is weighted for the people that are hurting throughout our nation, our churches, our ministries, our cities, communities, our neighbors, and our great country that we live in, a country of freedom, a country that has been the most giving nation in the world in the area of missions. America is a great nation. I've waited until I felt that I could see a picture of what God wanted me to share with the people that I have influence with. Obviously, if you are part of the church that I pastor, your lives and your opinions and thoughts are oftentimes framed around the words that I say, as are many members of churches. Their members, their opinions, ways of thinking are oftentimes framed around the thoughts and the hearts of the men and women that they follow in ministry in their lives. Paul said something in Ephesians 1:18 that I want to read that really jumped out at me and really spoke to my spirit. Paul said in Ephesians 1:18, having the eyes of your hearts enlightened, that you may know what is the hope to which he has called you, what are the riches of his glory and his glorious inheritance that are in the saints. He uses a very interesting term here. He says, he's not saying, I hope that your eyes are open. He says, I am praying that the eyes of your heart is open. The eyes of your heart. I really never thought about the eyes of my heart being open. Oftentimes, whenever I make a judgment or whenever I share something that I think, it's done from the rationale of my mind. It's done from the collective information that I have gotten in my life. It's done by the things that I see. It's done by my environment, my upbringing, the things that I have been raised to believe, the things that I have been challenged through life with. So oftentimes, the only narrative that we can ever gather or gain or come to is the ones that we've experienced in our own lives. And it is not unusual for us to base and build our opinions about things on our experiences. It is those experiences in our lives that cause us to think the way that we think, to do what we do, to act the way we act. When I was growing up, I was trained raised by a loving father, a loving mother. It is Father's Day weekend. And one of the things that we were told as children oftentimes was this: you don't act that way when you're at church. You don't act that way when you're in public. You don't act that way while you're over here or over there. It is a confusing message whenever you are given a pass, permission to act one way in one place and then act totally different in another place, showing us that our actions are not really what matter. It's really the perception of the people where we are, where we're going, what we're doing. What I'm going to share tonight is going to possibly and probably offend many people. And it is not my intention to do that tonight. It is not. My intention tonight is to build unity and to bring awareness to some things that I believe need to be brought to the forefront. There are many, many preachers that want things to be better, desire for things to be better, that need things to be better. We have a divided nation right now. We have people that are drawing lines in the sand and saying, if you believe this, you're this. If you believe this, you're this. And it is causing extreme pain and anger in many people's lives. One of the terms that I have hated for years, that I have despised, that I have rejected as being a part of, and that has personally offended me at times, is the term white privilege. For me to be told that I am part of white privilege bothered me. It offended me. And oftentimes whenever someone says you're privileged in a certain area, you immediately build up a defense of that because you immediately go to the journey that you have had in life to get to where you are, whether it be a success in ministry or whether it be a success in secular life. Someone looks at you and says, well, yeah, you can do that. I'm not you. I don't have that privilege. Oftentimes you want to rise up and you want to say, I'm not privileged. I've worked for what I have. I've got sweat. I've got blood. I've got tears. I've got many, many nights. I've been pushed down. I've been kicked around to get to where I am. So the term privilege oftentimes brings an immediate defense because most people that think you're privileged have no idea about your journey and how you arrived at where you are. I looked at the word privilege and I saw the definition of the word privilege is a special right, an advantage, or an immunity granted or available only to a particular person or group. A special right, an advantage. And tonight I want to speak through the eyes of my heart, not just my head, but the eyes of my heart. For us as white individuals, and I grew up in an extremely segregated area. I grew up where white people lived in certain areas and black people lived in other areas. So I grew up separated physically when it came to life. We merged for school. We were not a segregated community for school, but our lives were not entwined. Maybe we worked side by side. Maybe we played football and baseball and basketball and went to school and sat in desks side by side, but our lives were not intertwined. Our churches were not multiracial. Your church was either all white or it was all black. It was not like it is at our church at Judah. So our environment was framed from the perspective of that's where you belong and this is where we belong, and we don't want you here and you don't want us there. Growing up in that, I did not understand, and even going into my adult years and even up until the recent tragedies that have taken place in our nation, I never believed, thought, or even agreed with the fact that I had white privilege. But the truth of the matter is, I have grown up all my life and I have come to the place where I realize a privilege is not something that is always evident. A privilege is not something that is always viewable, understandable. A privilege is not always something you know you have. You can have privileges that you don't even realize you have. The things that I grew up without, my children grew up with. The opportunities I grew up without, my children's grew up with. But they never viewed them as privileges. They viewed them as just their life. That's the way they live. They never really had an appreciation for it because it was never not there. It was always there. When they were born, and then when they got to a place where they could understand things, we were at a certain level of success that they did not understand that, hey, Dad lived in a one-bedroom apartment at one point, in a trailer house, 14 foot wide, in Eunice, Louisiana. I wasn't always like this. It wasn't always like this. I could not get my kids to understand that because they weren't there for that. It was only whenever I went to Cuba, Africa, different places, where I began to realize that privileges are oftentimes overlooked because we don't realize we're privileged. You don't realize having an indoor toilet is a privilege until you're in Africa or until you're in a third world country and you have to go outside to use the restroom. Then you understand, I have a privilege that these people do not have. I want to say this today. I don't know what it's like to be pulled over by the police that I respect greatly and feel like that they have been wrongly judged in this situation because of a few people's actions. The entirety of our police force is judged. We don't want that as pastors. We don't want what another man's failure has been exposed when it's been exposed. We don't want our church to think all pastors are that way. When people do certain things to pastors or churches, we don't want to feel like all people are that way, and all people are not the way that these gentlemen are or were or did in Minneapolis, Minnesota. All of our police officers are not bad people. They're not racist. But you must understand that if you are white tonight in this nation, and I have had the honor of being connected in both worlds at many levels, stood on platforms with great men and women of God, of all races and all ethnic backgrounds. I've had a great honor to do that. And so my life has always seemed to intertwine because of music and because of those opportunities with people of color. I never thought of the fact that I could walk into a very high-end store in my mall and not be followed around because of the color of my skin. I've never thought about it. I've never seen someone look at me funny as I walked in a room because of the color of my skin. I've never felt what that feels like. I've never thought about what that feels like. So therefore, that can be a privilege that I didn't even realize that I had. I've never been asked, and I have been pulled over by the police in my own neighborhood. Why are you in this neighborhood? What are you doing in this neighborhood? Do you live in this neighborhood? I've never been asked that. I've never faced that type of life. I've been privileged. I've had opportunities. And we need to understand tonight, I did not come on this Facebook Live, and this is where I feel like I've got to start sharing what my eyes of my heart see in this time in our nation. It is a strategic time. I am not speaking to my black brothers and sisters. I came on here tonight to speak to my white brothers and sisters, my white peers that are in pulpits, that have influence, that are leading people. Every time I have ever gone to a doctor's office, every time, the ER, every time I've ever walked into a place because of pain, discomfort, or I felt something was wrong that I wasn't sure of, along with the form that I filled out that describes my pain or describes my discomfort, there's another form underneath that. It's been in every ER, every doctor's office that I've ever been in. And here's what the form says. It lists that it wants information on my father, on my mother, on my grandfather, on my grandmother. It requests that I give them a background of where I came from to establish possibly why I'm going through what I'm going through. In the scriptures, you don't have to look far. Just look into Genesis with Abraham. As Abraham had Isaac, who had Jacob, and you see the sins of the fathers that are passed down to generations beneath them, the iniquities, the wrongs that Abraham did, that Isaac imitated, that Jacob then imitated and did. We have to acknowledge the iniquities and the past. We have to stand up and quit telling people to get over something that we have no idea the pain or the stigmatism or the rejection or how they feel. I cannot, I will not, and I do not have the right to tell someone they should be over what I've never experienced in their own life. I cannot sit here tonight as a white man. I'm not 15 anymore. I'm not 20 anymore. I'm now considered one of the pastors that are leading pastors. I have pastors that are under my covering, my influence. I want to speak to those white pastors tonight. We need to understand tonight that there are things that we did not do, but they're inherited. They are passed down to us. They are in our DNA. And even though we did not do the damage, even though I would never think of putting chains around a black man's ankles and owning him. I wouldn't think of getting a whip and beating the back of a man because he's a different color and shaming him. I wouldn't ever dream of treating someone with such disrespect, with such anger, pain, and to own another individual. Even though I didn't do any of that, and you didn't do any of that, we didn't do any of that, we are still responsible to open our hearts that have eyes, not here, because here is trapped in sometimes environments that never change. I've got family members that have never left the state that they grew up in. So you cannot keep looking from here to figure out an answer for what's happening in our entire nation based on the only things you see in your community. You have to look from your heart. Adam and Eve in the garden in the book of Genesis disobeyed God, and that sin showed up in their two sons, Cain and Abel. And tonight, I want to declare to you something, and I want you to hear me very clearly when I say this. White lives matter. White lives matter. And when I say that, this is what I mean. What we do as white people matters right now. It matters. The way we respond matters right now. Our actions matter right now. And I am exhausted as a minister in hearing my white peers that look into cameras or speak, and I understand that they are doing it from the bottom of their heart. They don't mean evil. They don't mean bad. They don't mean wrong. They're not doing it. They're trying their best. But I want you to hear me if you're white tonight. It is time for us to quit asking the black community to join with us in solving this problem. Because this is not something the black community brought on itself. We are not assisting addicts. We are not stepping in to help someone who has made bad decisions. This race of people that go to our churches, that stand beside us on platforms, that support our ministries, that support our businesses, that are our neighbors in our neighborhood, they did not do anything to deserve the heritage that they have suffered. It is an insult for white people to then come to black people and say, well, help me help you. As if I want to step in and you help me help you. When the bottom line is, it is not their plight to fix what white did. What white did, white must fix. I'm not going to ask Pastor John Jenkins, my pastor, to help me fix this racist moment in our history. No, it is my responsibility to reach out to my white peers and say, we must take action to fix this problem. We must do it. Listen to me carefully before you turn me off and you're offended. If you're white and you're listening to me and you're offended, listen to me carefully. This would be like this. I'm standing on the side of the road, and my great-great-great-great-grandfather sees a black man walking on the road, and my great-great-great-great-grandfather is in a vehicle and runs him over. He runs over the black gentleman that's on the road. And I run to the man that's bleeding. I run to the man that's wounded. I run to the man that has been unjustly ran over because my great-great-great-great-grandfather hates people of color. And I see the tragedy, and I run to the man that's been injured, and I look at the man that's injured, and I say to him, come on now, get up and help me fix you. Come on now. You need to get up, help me fix you. And then his rehabilitation may take years. And I walk in the man's house, and he's years later, and he's still trying to get out of his chair to shake my hand. Because I was there and I tried to help him. He's still trying to stand up. He's still trying to get his footing. He's still trying to get his strength. And I look at him and he says, well, I'm just not having a good day today. I'm really hurting. I'm still hurting from what happened to me years ago. And I look at him and I say, come on, man. Aren't you over that yet? Why don't you get over that? That's the past. I didn't do it, bro. I didn't run over you. That's the past. Because see, that is where we are in America right now. We are in a time where with good intentions, my white brothers and sisters are saying we need to dialogue so that Black America and white America can come together in unity. Listen, I pastor a predominantly black church. I have for many, many years. And I'm going to tell you something right now. It is time for people to understand that actions will always speak louder than words. We've got to come together, and we've got to look from our heart. Open the eyes of our heart and begin to see that the injustice of the past, we may think everybody ought to get over it. We may think this is something that is unmerited. The anger, the way things are being handled. No, we've got to come to a place where we as white people understand we've had privileges that we don't even realize we had. It doesn't mean I haven't worked hard to get to where I am. It doesn't mean my father gave me anything. It doesn't mean that I've disrespected the black race because I've had privileges. I didn't decide to be born white. God decided that. So I can't be held accountable for the color of my skin, but I can be aware that with that color comes privileges that I've never, ever understood that I had. Rights, open doors, opportunities given to a certain group of people, a certain person. I didn't cause it, but it's in my DNA. I'm in the ER, and I'm finding out that my ancestors had issues that are connected to me. And I am not going to ask the wounded to help me help them. I'm going to rise up and challenge the men and women of God that I'm connected to, that are the color that I am. Can we join together and come up with answers and solutions and opportunities and ways to make this better? Oh yeah, but Bishop, you don't understand, Bishop. They're over there in Minnesota burning down businesses, and I just can't believe that they're over there burning down buildings in Atlanta, and I can't believe they're up in there rioting and burning things down and burning buildings down and doing this and doing that. Listen, let me tell you something. I do not agree with the destruction of people's property, with hurting people from being able to make a living and things like that. But I'm not going to label everyone a terrible person because of the way they respond to the anger, the hurt, and all of the pain of the past in their life. But let's just be fair. If we're going to be upset, if we're going to be appalled, if we're going to be so angry as white people because of what we're seeing in our streets and our cities, all of these burnings of buildings and things like that, then let's not forget that the year I was born, in 1963, in Birmingham, Alabama, at 16th Baptist Church in Birmingham, Alabama, there was another fire. There was another building that was burned down. No, it wasn't a Best Buy. It wasn't a pizza place. It was a church. And inside of that church were 3 little black girls. 3 children were in that church in Birmingham, Alabama, burnt down by white supremacists who hated black people, who hated them not because of anything they did to them, but just because of the color of their skin. So if we're going to talk about burning things down, let's not act like that the black community just came up with this. Let's not act like the thugs in Minnesota are the first ones to come up with this stuff. Don't bring that to me. Listen, I'm not supporting burning buildings down. I don't support that. But if we're going to start weighing it in the balance, and that's what people do, that's what keeps us divided. That's what keeps us on different ends of healing anything. Whenever we want to start looking at stuff and judging it, but we don't want to look at the past. Get over that. Come on, Bishop. That's 1963 when you were born. That's 57 years ago. That ain't us. We didn't have anything to do with that. All right, let's get down to today. In 2019, in my state of Louisiana, in the parish that I grew up in, St. Landry Parish, last year, are you listening to me? 3 historical black churches were burned to the ground in St. Landry Parish, not in 1950, not in 1902, not in 1910, not in 1865, not in 1964, 65, 66, no, not in 63. In 2019, 3 historical black churches burned to the ground by white supremacists, white people that hate black men and women, burned to the ground. But there was no outrage for that. The white community didn't rise up and rebuild that because white people did it. But we want black people to rise up and go down there to Atlanta and control your people. Go down there to Minnesota. Where's our black actors? Where's our black leaders? Where's our black pastors that need to say something about the way that their people are acting? Come on now. Where was all of our white brothers and sisters? Where was all of our white leaders? Where was all of our white pastors and our white politicians helping to rebuild, not 50 years ago, not 100 years ago, what white people burned down last year in Opelousas, Louisiana? So if we're going to start weighing stuff, let's weigh it. Let's put it in perspective. Let's be honest with each other. Let's talk about it. Let's not pick and choose what riles us up. Let's not pick and choose what we think is, I'm telling you right now, Hey man, did y'all hear about that black church being burned? Yeah, that's such a shame. That's just terrible. Hey, you hear about those black kids burning down that Best Buy over there in Minnesota or Atlanta or Detroit or wherever? Yeah, I'm just telling you right now. I'll tell you how I feel about it. I'll tell you this and I'll tell you that and I'll tell you this and I'll tell you that. And we'll have a 5-month dialogue about how terrible these young black people are because they're burning stuff down and doing stuff. And I'm not for that. That's not going to answer anything. But I'm saying, let's start opening the eyes of our heart and understand that when white people, when white young men, when white young women, when white men and women are doing destructive things, not burning down a Best Buy, not burning down a Wendy's, burning down churches. White young men walking into a church in South Carolina and slaughtering innocent people, praying and being ministered to in a Bible study. And before, they didn't shoot that kid that did that. You know what they did? They put him in the back of a cop car, and on the way to the jail, they asked him if he needed anything. I'm hungry, and drove him through Burger King. Let's get real. Open the eyes of our heart. That's what Paul said. I had somebody call me just 2 days ago. And I'm telling you, these are things I have had to check myself with. I felt this way about certain things that I'm sharing with you. I'm not saying you're bad. I've said it too. Man, I tell you what, where's Oprah? Why don't Oprah go over there and, one word from a Denzel Washington would calm those things down. Well, where are we when we're burning things down? When we're killing? When we're destroying property? Where's our leadership? And what is our reason for doing it? Let's check the history. Let's look at the chart in the ER department. Let's see what's happened in the past. What happened to your mama? What happened to your mama's mama? What happened to your daddy and your daddy's daddy and your daddy's daddy and daddy? Oh, he was hung from a tree while white people took pictures of it, laughing and pointing. That's what's on my chart. That's what I would be told by somebody black. I'm sorry that I have pain and that I'm in the ER and need help, Bishop, but could you look at my family history? It might describe why I'm going through what I'm going through right now. If you just look at my family history and not judge me just on today. I had somebody call me a few days ago and say, can you believe they're tearing down all of these statues, all of these Confederate leaders, all of these leaders that led the Confederate Army in slavery? Can you believe what they're doing? That they're destroying history and pulling down. And for a while I was like, yeah, what's the deal? What's the big deal? Why you got to do this? And why you got to go pull all that down and do all that kind of stuff? Why you want to do that? Why you want to go rename schools? I mean, why just because it's a Robert E. Lee school? Well, let's look at the chart in the ER department. Let's look at it. Come on now, think about it. You're black. You got 2 young black children. Well, we got to enroll y'all in school today. Oh, great. Yep. Where do y'all go to school? We go to Robert E. Lee High School. Really? Yeah. Mama, who's Robert E. Lee? Oh, he's the one that beat your ancestors, that whipped them, that made them pick cotton, that separated families, that destroyed and tore at the very fragment of unity with families, that refused to let your great-grandmother be educated, refused to let your great-grandfather be educated, refused to give them any type of rights or any type of access to anything humane, made them get in wagons, sold them, beat them. That's the school y'all are going to, baby. That's where y'all going. That's where I'm going, Mom? Yeah. Why would you enroll me in that school? And it just keeps going and keeps going. And we as white people, we're like, my God, it's the 1800s. Get over it. No, I can't get over it. It's in my chart. It's in my DNA. My mother died of a heart attack. And every time I hear of someone dying young of a heart attack, it does something to me. I feel something. It's not the same as if they told me they died of Alzheimer or they died in a car wreck. Even though my compassion is there, I got to be honest. When someone says their father or their mother passed away from leukemia or cancer, it does something to me. My father struggled and died of that. Why? Because what my father experienced, it still grips me tonight. Every time I hear leukemia, it's the first thought that pops in my head. But black people need to get over it. That's what they need to do. Get over it. That's not going to answer anything. Why are they pulling down all those statues? And you listen to me. If you are offended at me tonight, you're white and you're offended at me tonight, let me tell you something. And I'm telling you right now, you're a liar if you say any different. And I'll say it right now. We get all upset, we get all mad, we get all angry because black people are pulling down Confederate images, Confederate statues, but we were standing up and celebrating and shouting and clapping our hands and saying, oh yeah, do it, when they were tearing down Saddam Hussein's statue over there in Baghdad whenever we raided Iraq, and the citizens got up with chains and wrapped them around Saddam's neck and pulled his statue down. There wasn't no white people saying, come on now, why y'all want to destroy part of your history? That's the man that raped my children. That's the man that killed my father. That's the man that destroyed my family. That's the man that I now have nobody to go back to talk to about my history because of the way he treated our people. Nobody that's white was saying they should leave Saddam's statue up, leave Stalin's statue up, because the Russian leader, leave Adolf Hitler's statues up. No, when they were tearing down walls and tearing down their statues, America was applauding. White America was applauding. But the minute somebody of color, that DNA, that pain rises back up and they take action and they tear something down, we rise up and say, well, they ought to get over that. I can't believe they're destroying American history. But we weren't saying that when it was time for Saddam Hussein. We were saying, yeah, drag it out, destroy it, throw it away. How would you like to drive by your city and in the center of your city, a statue of someone that raped, that owned, that beat, that hung, that killed your ancestors? There he is. Every time you go to get a burger, you got to go around Robert E. Lee's statue. How would you feel? What should we do with the people that did that? America said, put them in bronze. Name schools after them. Oh, Bishop, you just trying to make black people feel better. No, I'm trying to make us feel better. I'm trying to make white people feel better. I'm trying to make white people wake up. I'm trying to make me feel better. Not black people, me. I am going to do something. I am going to make a difference. I am going to change things. You can do it with me if you want to. I didn't come on here tonight so that black people will feel better about a white man. I came on here tonight so that I could make white people open the eyes of their heart. And let's take action and not judge whenever we wasn't judging over here. We won't judge St. Landry Parish 2019 burnings of 3 churches. We'll just say, yeah, that's terrible that happened. That's just terrible. But we'll talk about everybody tonight that's raging throughout our country. If we built the boats that brought them to slavery, let's build the bridge that brings them to safety. We built the boats that brought them to slavery. Let's be the ones that build the bridge to bring them to safety. Let's be the people that fix what our ancestors did, that correct what our ancestors did, that change what our ancestors did. Do you know, I don't feel like I'm an old person. Do you know that when I was born, your black neighbor, your black friends, your black members of your church that you sit by could not vote? When I was born, the pain is not that long ago, y'all. It's not that far back. It's not. We've got to be people of action now. We've got to be people that are willing to listen, learn, and lead. Listen, learn, and lead. Well, what do they want from us? What do they want from us? Equality. They want some of that privilege that we didn't know we had. They want to be treated equally. Oh, no, they don't want to be treated equally. They want to be treated. Not anybody I'm friends with. I don't want to be connected to people that want to get superior treatment in life than me. So you know what? If you know people, black people or white people that want to be treated superior than you, I wouldn't be connected to those people. All black people are not like that, and all white people are not racist. But we as white people have to take responsibility for the racism, the rage, and the hurt, and the pain, and the blood, and all of the things of the past. We can't just sit back and say to ourselves and say to everybody else that it wasn't us that did it. That don't float no more. That doesn't have any more weight anymore. I'm not going to ask my black brothers and sisters to help me fix what the white generation of people in our lifetime has done. It's not their thing to fix. It's our thing to fix. If I tear your house down, I should build it and not expect you to pay for it, to get right alongside and hammer and sweat and build. No, I tore it down. Why would I go home at night and go, I'm trying to build that guy a house over there, and he won't even lift a finger to help me. He just wants to sit over there and watch me build it. Yeah, I tore it down. My father tore it down, or my great-grandfather tore it down, or my great-great-grandfather. It doesn't matter. It's in my chart. And we've got to listen, learn, and then lead. We've got to stop this preaching the principles that we're preaching and not start living the principles. I'm tired of hearing about all the principles. And listen, I'm for moving on. Paul said, forgetting those things which are behind me, I press toward the mark. I'm for all that. I believe that. You can't go into the future holding on to the past. I believe all that. You can't live back there and then have a life up here. I'm for all that. I preach all that. I believe all of that. But we've got somebody ran over in the ditch, and we know who did it, and they're connected to us, and we want them to get over it, and they're still in rehabilitation. Well, what more do they want? They've had a black president. Yeah. One. Does that sound like equality? Oh, well, what are we supposed to do, Bishop? We're supposed to now have as many black presidents, they need to be white. No, that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm saying is we shouldn't all jump up as white people and start tap dancing and clapping our hands and say, look what we did. We gave you one. We helped you get one in there. So shut up about all of the ones throughout time that some were slave owners of our presidents. Slave owners. Get over it. Move on. Why you got to go out in the street? Because we're not out in the street. That's why people have to do it. We're not out. It's time for us to understand. This is not a white and black issue. This is a white issue. It's a white issue. And trust me, man, I'm from the deep South. I grew up there. I watched my father work, sweat, right alongside of black men. I've watched my dad get out of bed at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning to go pull them out of ditches in their cars. But they weren't invited over to the Brown house for dinner. We wasn't inviting them to church. Y'all stay over there. We gonna stay over here. It's time for us, my white brothers and sisters, the white pastors that really want to make a change, that really want to make a difference, to rise up and denounce what's going on in our nation. If you watch that video and it doesn't grip you to a place of anger, you need to check yourself. You need to check yourself. And if you're sitting there saying, well, just do what the police say to do, no, no, you need to check yourself. You need to really take a long look at who you are. As we watched on national television a man get murdered in front of us. And yet we sit back and we're upset that Confederate leader statues are being torn down and that we want to change the names of schools, while black families are having to march their kids into high schools named after people that oppressed, murdered, beat, owned their ancestors. And if you're upset, if you're upset, you're mad, well, you know, I tell you, I don't. You need to open the eyes of your heart. Not this, not, well, I don't have a problem with black people. Well, I've got black friends. Well, I don't mind black people. If you have any of those feelings, then you got to deal with some stuff. I'm sorry, you do. I did. Every day, Paul said, I die daily. I got to deal with some stuff. I don't agree with everything, but who cares? We all have opinions. But we've got to come to a place of truth. If my people, which are called by my name, shall humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their ways, wicked ways, I will hear from heaven and I will heal their land. If we want healing, it starts with humility. And it's not easy. It sounds easy, but it's not easy to humble yourself and get real with yourself. You know in your heart, because it's the only thing that doesn't have a mouth. That's why it said, from the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. I only say what I want people to hear. Paul said, man, open the eyes of your heart. And I pray tonight that all across America, anybody that watches this, I love everyone in my church. White, red, yellow, black. I love all of my pastor friends. I speak in as many black pastored churches as I do white pastored churches. I love them, appreciate them. Glad to have every one of them in my life. Don't want any of them out of my life. But we are not going to heal this land until we, as a white generation that does not understand we've had privileges, if we don't rise up and speak up and pull up those that have been oppressed and pushed down and living in injustice beneath us. When Peter and John went to the temple, there was a man lame, begging. And I hear a nation begging, help me. And Peter and John said these words, and I will shut up with this. I'm not going to give you money. Money's not going to fix our problem in America. They said this, silver and gold we don't have. But in the name of Jesus, I have Jesus. Rise and walk. But wait, the Bible says in Acts 3, and Peter put his hand down and pulled that man up to his level, by his side, and then walked him in a temple that refused to let handicapped people, those that were struggling with handicaps, those that were struggling with physical ailments, they couldn't go in the temple if they were marred. Peter puts his hand down, pulls the man up through the power of Jesus Christ, and says, now walk with me into that building. Because today, you have become my equal. Not the one I helped. You're not my outreach program. You're not my feed the hungry program. You're not my once a week go down to the inner city program. You're my brother. You're my sister. And it was my ancestors that brought the pain on your ancestors, that passed it down. And thank God for people like Martin Luther King Jr., who marched for equality and preached for equality, because not many men in his shoes would have been asking for peace. Not after watching what had happened to their ancestors. And we cannot live in a nation where we are deaf and blind, leading blind. The blind, I refuse to see it. That statue don't bother me. Well, it shouldn't bother me from the standpoint of how it hurt me. It should bother me from the standpoint of if Pastor Andre Williams, my brother at Judah South, is riding in the car with me and we go around a Robert E. Lee statue, I ain't thinking about it. He's thinking about it. Well, he wasn't no slave. He wasn't. It doesn't matter. That's not the point. The point is, why should he have to live in a nation that continually reminds him of how painful and unjust his life and his ancestors were treated? I've never thought twice about the name of a school, never thought twice about Confederate statues, never thought twice about anything in a Confederate flag in the back of somebody's truck window. I've never thought twice about it. It's never bothered me. Never offended me. Well, that's because my great-great-grandfather didn't die at the hands of that hate and that racism. But if you say a heart attack, now you got my attention. Why? That's what killed my mama. If you say leukemia, now you got... I noticed you had a little bit of a look on your face when I said leukemia. Yeah. What's the deal with that? Well, that's what my father died of. And you want me to get over that? I'll never be over it. Forever, it will impact my life. And every time I go to the ER, they want me to remind them of all the things my ancestors struggled with so they can help me now. And the only way we can fix what's going on is if we as white America look at the wounded that are black America and say, what can we do? Take down a statue of a man that raped, pillaged, killed all your ancestors? No problem. Change the name of a school that your little kids have to go to that represent the death and the slavery of your ancestors? No problem. That's what we should be doing. Not, well, I don't know why they expect that. It's not about us, but we can fix it. Why are we fighting what we can fix? Why are we doing it? Why are we fighting what we can fix? Let's fix it. Let's change it. And let's not shut up until it is changed. Let's raise our voices. Because white lives matter. What white people do right now matters more than any time in American history. I believe it. I believe it. White lives matter. What I do right now matters. And I pray for our nation. And I pray for our pastors. And I'm praying for you. And I love you. And I appreciate you. And please do not allow offense to be in your heart just because I open the eyes of mine. Let me do it. We're in a free world. You can click me off or you can share it. It's up to you. I just brought you the way my heart sees it, because this week I opened the eyes of my heart. God bless you. God bless America. And I pray tomorrow all over the nation that when people walk through the doors of their church, they feel unity, love, acceptance, respect, and more than anything, equality. Equal. We are the body of Christ. God bless you. Don't be the blind leading the blind.